Well, this is an interesting thing to film, isn't it? I think I just need to get on with it. I feel like I need a drink. I don't even drink, really. I feel like I need an alcoholic drink to explain this on film. But anyway, I'll just get on with it. You can probably see anyway from the title of this video that yes, I have handed in my notice with my current employer. And I guess this is not something that many people talk about. It can be a bit awkward. I didn't think I felt awkward about it until I tried to sit down and film it, but hey, we'll get on with it. And I guess I just wanted to share this with you really, and to explain the process, maybe a little bit around why and what I've learned through going through this recently in the midst of a pandemic, which has been fun. It's actually been around 2 months since I handed it in, end of September time. And it's not been the easiest in the current time that we are in. I'm not going to mention the C word, but ideally you'd be face to face with colleagues a lot more often than we have been now. You'd be able to have more comfortable one-to-one conversations, but hey, that's what we're going through. I wasn't going to let this situation stop me. We've still got to progress, right? And in fact, I think it's actually accelerated my plans. So I think I've got to the point twice in my career now where I'm kind of having this internal battle around whether I stay inside my comfort zone or not, and I know that it's happening because I have this dialogue with myself where it's like, oh, you could be happy, you could plod and do this for a number of years, you'd be fine staying where you are, you know, you're earning a stable income, and you could just enjoy life, relax a bit, obviously still apply all your attention that you need to work, but it's not, you know, really mentally stimulating, it's not pushing all my buttons, it's not making me feel really passionate about where I am and where I'm going to be. But this thing in your mind is always there to remind you that, you know, you could just live this for a little bit longer, you could just enjoy it. And I'm sure while a lot of that is just inner chatter, I would still progress where I am. I could take on the more challenging things, I could put my hands up for stuff, I could, you know, really try and have a refresh and another deep dive into the role that I'm in. But just the fact that I'm having that conversation implies to me that I'm not moving at a pace that I would usually be comfortable with. I want to go a bit faster, looking for something a bit more challenging. And you know, I'm an advocate of mental health, and I'm never gonna push myself too much to the sacrifice of my mental health and seeing my family and doing the things that I enjoy outside of work. But the fact that I'm having that conversation signals to me that is it time for you to kind of think about your next step. You've really got to look at those external factors as well. So how is it going to affect the industry that you're in? Is it going to affect the legal work? The ability for you to take on new things, forward-thinking projects, etc. And in my case, sadly, that has been affected, so I think that's another reason why I'm looking to make the move, or at least why it's been accelerated. And sometimes, you know, that challenge may be able to be found in your current employer, and that's absolutely great if it can. If you need to have those conversations, and of course have the confidence to bring them up. But in my case, that might have just been an instance of kicking the can down the road, so I decided to look for other opportunities. And it's interesting this because you're thinking about what you can and cannot say. It's not like I'm the owner of some huge company and you've got to have like a formal statement signed off. But it just seems to be so awkward when you're talking about leaving a role. People move on, people change jobs all of the time. And I know in our industry we are professionals and we need to come across that way, but it doesn't mean that we've got to be silenced and we can't talk about these things that happen. They're a part of life, and although of course I'm a professional myself, so I do uphold that where it's necessary, what I don't like is where that takes away from the personality and being able to express yourself. But before I dig myself a big hole, I'm just going to move on with this video. So a bit about the process then. My top tip is to use a recruiter. The earlier you can get to know and form a relationship with a recruitment consultant in your career, the better. They aren't just there for when you need them to find a job for you. They can really help to shape your career, and the earlier they get to know you and what you want and what you're aiming for, the more they can like lead you into the directions that they think is best for you. Of course you do it together, but a recruiter will have the knowledge of the industry and the way it's going, and will have a lot of different connections in different legal circles to help you to get to where you want to be. There'll be a lot more coming up about recruitment on In-House Potter because I think it's something that isn't embraced until you get to a certain part of your career, but I really do see the benefits in engaging in that scene earlier, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, I used my trusted consultant. Her name is Alison from BCL. BCL are a large UK legal recruiter. They've been going for ages, and what I absolutely love about them is they have a dedicated in-house team. Not only does Alison know the market really well, she also knows me, flaws and all, so she can really work with me and support me to land that next role. Now, it doesn't have to be just any role. It's not just a case of, you know, Alison saying to me, I've got 20 roles on, which one do you want to go for? It's a two-way thing. So the sorts of things that you can talk to a recruitment consultant like Alison about are location, working style, career development expectations, salary, benefits, if you're after any flexibility, and the list goes on. Most of these things you'd be wary of talking about with your employer directly, but you don't have to worry about that with a recruitment consultant. They're there to support you, and it's all about working together to get you to where you want to be. The recruitment consultant is obviously appointed by the employer to headhunt individuals, but it works in everyone's favour if the individual is a really good fit for that role that's being advertised. I also did some research myself, so of course there's LinkedIn. The job market is incredible on there. A lot of them will be shown to be advertised by a recruiter, so of course if you see something that might interest you, reach out to them and have a conversation. You're not tied to a certain recruitment firm if you don't want to be. You're always free to do your own research, and of course there'll be those roles that are being advertised directly. Now, I'm never really far away from the job market, if I'm honest, whether I'm looking to move or not. I think it's a really good practice to get into, to be aware of the movers and shakers in the in-house world, what in-house teams look like, who's moving from private practice to in-house or vice versa, because you can really plan the kind of team that you want to be in, spot any trends that might be useful to you, whether now or in 5-10 years' time. It's just good knowledge, if not anything else. I did apply for 2 roles directly before I was offered the one that I accepted, and there's also some other things in the works that I was thinking about, and just because they haven't formed my next step now doesn't mean they won't be with me at some point in the future. But all this research that I've done during this time has really helped me to refine my goals for the future. So just because you might not get things at the time that you think, oh, I would have really loved to gone for that, or that would have been perfect for me, everything does happen for a reason, and it's really, really great to kind of bank that knowledge and continue to build on it and the connections that you've gained, because they're always going to be in your network as long as you look after them. So a little bit more on the 2 roles that I applied for directly. The first one I just simply didn't get. I didn't get a rejection notice, but what happened was, because there were so many that applied for it, there was an email sent out saying, if we don't get back to you by a certain date, then I'm sorry, it's not for you this time, but we appreciate your application. And to be honest with this, I wasn't expected to not hear back. I think I was probably stretching myself a little bit with it. I wasn't the ideal match. There's people in the industry that are much more better suited to that role than I. I just thought I'd give it a go, and for the experience it was great, if nothing else. I learned a lot about that particular company, and I also had to write my very, very first cover letter in a long time, which was interesting. I think in-house is very different when you apply for roles. It just completely depends on the business and their recruitment process. So being asked to write a cover letter for me was like, what's cover letter, and do I even know how to write one? So that was interesting. And the second one I did get a response to pretty soon, but it was just that they were looking for someone to start much sooner than I was able to because of my notice period. So that was that. I also researched what else was going on in the legal industry, and there are some really exciting things happening. I think we're on the brink of a huge shake-up in the way legal services are delivered, and I have learned so much during this time and this period of research. And although that wasn't my immediate next step, it has made me very excited for the future of the profession, and it might be part of my future too. Something else that I did during this process was lent on a mentor for advice. Now, this person has really helped me to define what success is to me. They've given me a lot of golden nuggets of information, such as never take the first job that comes along. And we also discussed private practice as well, which is interesting. Now, don't worry, in-house potter is not going anywhere. I'm not heading in that direction, that's for sure. Well, yet anyway. Never say never. And also just to say that there were other roles. I obviously applied for 2 before this one, so 3 including this, and explored other options, but there's a lot of other roles floating around that might get sent to you that you'll think, oh, that's interesting, I'll explore it, and it is very time consuming, but I think it's also important to know when something just doesn't suit you. There's no harm in hanging around for a little bit longer and waiting for that role that you think you know, this does excite me, this is where I could see myself in 10 years, this is where I can tick off all those career goals that I've got. So I just want to say that you shouldn't be pressured into going for any certain type of job, whether it's because of the name of the company, its prestige, whether it's FTSE 100, anything like that. You should really get to know yourself first and what your career goals are, and align those with the role that you actually go for, because I think sometimes we can feel pushed in certain directions that we don't necessarily want to go down ourselves. And a new job is a big decision, you know, you hope to be there for years and years. So I just thought it was worth saying that. My leg's going dead. Ow. Ow, 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 ow. So a little bit more on the process that I accepted the role for. First of all, it was a CV application supported by Alison, followed by 2 interviews. Now the second interview was so stressful. It was when I was at that lodge with family, I shared it on my page, and the interview had to happen during that week, and of course it worked well because I was on annual leave, I didn't have to book any more time off. But it was in the middle of nowhere, no signal whatsoever. I was calling up beforehand like, what's your Wi-Fi like? You say it's fast, but is it really? I asked if I could book a private table in the cafe or even any of the staff meeting rooms just so I could have somewhere quiet to go, but naturally there was going to be children running around and things. So in the end I decided to do it from the lodge, but I had to kick everybody out and get them to all leave their phones with me so that I could tether in case one dropped out. I could just reconnect. And obviously I warned the employer and the interviewers before about this, that I would do my absolute best, but that stress is just not something that you need when you're just about to go through an interview. But it went well. I prepared as much as I could beforehand, really tested the Wi-Fi and the tethering, so I had like a system of things that I could do, and I actually did enjoy the interview process. It was a really good chat, and I felt comfortable asking the questions that I really want to ask, which is a really good sign, because if you're made to feel relaxed and like you can ask the questions that you really want the answers to, then those are 2 of the things that sold it for me. Now it's safe to say that I couldn't relax during that holiday until the interview was done, but I was obviously very happy afterwards, and you kind of get a good feeling about these things. You know when you've gelled, and if I'm honest, I kind of did expect an offer, or if not, I thought that I would get, you know, some good feedback and would hope to keep in touch with them in the future, so I was really chuffed with that. So I hope I've covered everything. I don't really want to ramble on too much about this because it's just me talking about myself. But I wanted to share it with you in the hope that it would highlight some of the things you have to think about. Like I said, everyone moves roles and not everyone talks about it, and especially not when you're qualified. So I thought it would help to explain the process that I went through and kind of some of the things that were going through my mind really. So a bit on where I am now then. So I'm working my notice. I'm also on furlough, which is interesting. It's not how I expected I'd be handing things over, and you kind of have this thing in your mind where you'll have emails that aren't urgent but you really want to finish off and wrap up and be able to provide input on before you leave. You've got current files that might be open or matters that are inevitably going to cross over the time when I leave. There's not much I can do about that, but you want to get it into as good a place as you can for the next person to take it on. And it's kind of strange not being able to do the absolute most that I can. I think as lawyers we try and be as organised as possible and have everything all together, but that just can't always be the case, especially in-house. And now I'm on furlough, so I'm just going to do my absolute best if and when I go back before my leave date. I did plan on having Christmas off, which will still happen, so I'll be completely off work, not furlough, but off work over Christmas, ready to start my new role in the new year. And of course I'm moving house, so it's not that I'm not going to be busy. I think that will really give me the time to get settled in and get an office set up, hopefully. Quite anxious about the Wi-Fi situation in the hope that it switches over. I'm hoping not to do my first day in my new job tethering, but if that has to be done then so be it. I did it for the interview, so why not for my first day at work? I'm really looking forward to bringing you along on this next step of my journey, and it's really great that you're here with me to do so. I'm also looking forward to developing in-house Potter further through it, because of course the more I learn, the more I can pass on to you, and the more we can share about our experiences and learn from one another. So I really do hope this video was useful. I don't know whether it should have been awkward or not talking about it, but yeah, this is my news and I'm really excited to share more with you.